Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to continue talking about SMART goals. So let's get started. If you like what you hear today, please leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, send me a message. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about goals, carefully designed goals, specifically what we call our SMART goals. You might recall we talked about SMART goals before, and they are specific, measurable, achievable or actionable, relevant or reach, and time-based with a deadline. Actually, we have a fancy little slide we can put up again. We changed it from last week, see if it's any more readable. And so again, we have specific goals, and those goals are, we talked about last week, goals that are something that lead into a very specific outcome. And we'll talk more about that in half a second as a review. And tonight we're going to be talking about measurable goals. So we'll go through all of those tonight, and over the next couple of weeks, we will wrap them all up and show how they all work together to have great outcomes. So specific, as we talked about, an effective goal has to contain all these elements. And like I said, we're not going to cover them all tonight, and we'll do it over the next few episodes. But tonight we're going to focus on just the second one, which is measurable. And first, a quick refresher on the first item, specific. Specific means, kind of like it sounds, that you're talking about one thing or one outcome in particular. You're talking about something specifically. You aren't just trying to save money. You want to save $100. You're talking about a very specific amount. We could have said we want to save a bunch of money, but how much is a bunch of money? We don't know. It's not specific. So by saying we want to save $100, we have a very specific target, and our brain knows how to work towards that target. A specific goal has the characteristics of talking about one thing only. Like we said, in this case, it would be money. So the M in SMART goals is making it measurable. So why does measurement even matter? Measurable goals transform vague intentions into concrete targets. If you're trying to reimagine your life, measurability helps because it provides clarity on what success actually looks like. It creates accountability through objective tracking. You can't say, yeah, I did a lot this week. If you're counting steps, for example, how many steps did you do? How much money did you save? It delivers the satisfaction of seeing your progress. If you're actually writing things down, we'll talk about that in a minute, you can see that you're getting closer and closer to your goal. It's self-motivating. And it helps identify when adjustment is needed. If you're working towards a very specific goal and you think you should be about halfway, and you look at where you are and you really have been working on it hard and you're only a quarter of the way there, you may have to revisit your goal a little bit and adjust things, and that's okay. So what are the main elements of a measurable goal? They have to be quantifiable or countable is another way of saying that. There's some sort of metric, meaning it's something you can keep track of. A truly measurable goal answers the question, how will I know when I'm actually done with it? How do I know when I achieved it? This requires specific numbers or specific amounts or a percentage or some way that you can actually measure something, see where it is compared to where you want to get to, and figure out where you are. So some examples, instead of I want to read more, say I'll read 2 books a month. Or instead of I'll save money, like we talked about before, we say I'll save $100 per month towards my trip, my very big dream trip. If you're going to measure something, you have to be able to track it. Or another way of saying it is you have to be able to count it. And you could do things like keep a physical journal or even a digital log, or use applications like, there's all sorts of fitness apps and budget tracking apps if you're doing something like that. And there's actually a good friend of mine, two good friends of mine actually, ride bikes. They ride bikes a lot. And I can't think of the name of the application. I'm sure somebody will write it in. But there's an app, and they can share how far they've gone and the trips they've taken and what the terrain was like and the weather was like and everything else. And it's self-motivating at that point because they planned this trip. They told people they're going to do this trip. And now they know everybody can see if they actually did this trip that they were planning to do. And so, and you can also, schedule regular check-ins with yourselves or with others. That's another way that's really good if you're doing something like if you're working out at home. Have a workout buddy who maybe call on the phone, or there's apps where you can kind of see each other and things like that, and say, 7 o'clock, I'll talk to you. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're going to work out together. And you can kind of keep each other honest, and then each of you keep track of how you're actually doing on this goal that you're working towards. And if you have a large goal, like a trip in 2 years, say, milestones along the way really help provide motivation and accountability. Because when you get a great big goal, paying down a credit card, paying off your house, they're not all just money, losing a certain amount of weight, having some fitness goal, something that you want to attain, but it's not going to happen for many months, maybe, or even a couple of years. By having it measurable, you can keep writing down where you are, and you can see that you're making progress, even though the goal still seems far off. You can look at your record and say, it's not as far off as it was. I'm actually getting closer. So, like I said, large goals become more manageable and motivating when you break them into smaller checkpoints. And something like, if I'm going to walk 10,000 steps daily, that might be too big for you right now, but maybe you put checkpoints at 3,000 or 5,000 or 8,000 steps. And so you're going along, you say, I'm still only doing 4,000 steps. And you go, wait a second. You pick up your little pad of paper and you look at it and say, that's right. I only plan to be at 3,000 steps now. I'm actually ahead of my goal. So things like that really kind of have this built-in motivating factor. And that's another reason for making things measurable. And like I said, the steps of making goals measurable, it ties right into moving into the next phase of your life and the goals we have set out for yourself to succeed. Because maybe you've retired from your main career and you're looking to transform to something else, say like consulting or teaching or something like that. Instead of saying, oh, I want to become a consultant and find some consulting work, change that goal to, I'll send proposals to 5 potential clients every single week and try and secure 3 paying jobs within 3 months. You have very specific something you're going to do and something very specific that you want to attain. Even if it's something that's not tied into a business per se, something like, oh, I want to help people learn how to read. Maybe you work with one of the groups or work on your own or work with a local school, a charity, a church, whatever. And you can say, not only do I want to help people learn how to read, but I want to find a place to do it and help 2 children to read every week for the next 6 months. By making it very actionable and specific, now you have taken something that's just kind of a dream that might happen someday to something where you really have set where you want to accomplish something. And it could be anything. Maybe you had a physically active job and now you have to find something to do instead of, just sit all day. Rather than say, I'll get in shape, say, I'll walk 30 minutes a day. And these things all play together, and something that actually affects a lot of people, because a lot of people have talked about this, and, oh, I wish I'd started writing a book. Now I don't remember stuff. If you start working on something, you remember all the things going on. So maybe you want to leave some sort of, a legacy book behind for your kids, because the guy, oh, remember Gramps used to talk about this story. What was that about? So instead, say, okay, I want to pass on all the things I've learned or did in my life. Instead of doing something really general like that, say, I'll spend 2 hours each week outlining and documenting my experiences, and then we'll talk about time later on in the series, and I'll create the index and the chapter outlines by December. So something very, very specific. And when you start doing it that way, which seems like an insurmountable goal, the very next step is actually not that big a goal, and you find out it's pretty easy to do. So while it all sounds simple enough, just come up with some way to measure things, there are a few things that you kind of want to be careful about, overdoing. You don't want too many metrics. So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to have this many diagrams, I'm going to have this many words, I'm going to write this many words a day, and blah, 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 and you end up with 100 things, and I'm going to have 100 chapters. Focus on 1 to 3 key measurements in whatever goal or goals that you're working on, because it's more effective than trying to track everything. If you just have something like, I'll write the index to a book, you don't have to write down how many chapters you're going to have or anything else. Just get through and you write the index down. And once you've done that, your brain will take that and run with it, and it'll flesh it out if it's kind of simple. As we talk about a lot, your brain is wonderful at making sure what you want happens. And so if you start on something, it will help you finish it. And as always, make sure it can be measured, and it has to be measured for real. Statements like, I want to be happier, they need something concrete to measure, such as, I'll write 3 gratitude entries in my journal every day. Things that have no way, that are just too intangible, have a way of never really happening, or you kind of kid yourself into saying, oh yeah, I'm happier, and without having done anything. And the last thing is, you really want to kind of avoid perfectionism, because like we say, it's always easy to get into the habit of negative self-talk. We've talked about that a lot. And it can happen here too, because the whole point of measuring things is to provide this kind of a basis for encouraging yourself so that you can focus on the progress and self-motivate yourself. If you're a perfectionist, you say, I was supposed to have 3,000 steps a day, I only got 2,999. I'm a failure, I'm stopping, right? Clearly not the result we want. Give grace. We all want to have big goals, and we tend to make goals a little bigger probably than we can do. That's okay. Just give yourself some grace when you don't quite reach them. No negative self-talk allowed, as always. So, you know, we're kind of wrapping things up here. So, measurement really kind of transforms concepts and dreams into achievable realities. And that's really important. I'm going to say that again because it's an important piece of SMART goals. We all have dreams. We all have concepts. Oh, I'd like to start a business. Oh, I'd like to get to France. And I know many people who have said things like that, not just for weeks and months and years, but decades. And so when you actually set a specific goal and then measure your progress towards the goal, these dreams that are so important to you are much more likely to become a reality, an achievable reality, because now you've gotten focused on how to take step after step to move towards that goal that you're setting. When setting SMART goals and reimagining your lives, measurable goals provide both direction of what to do and satisfaction. When combined with the other SMART elements, measurability helps, kind of turn wishes and dreams into meaningful transformations. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Talking about how to do a transformation in our life. We've already transitioned to a different phase of our life. Either we have it a while back, or we're going to soon, most likely, one of those 3 outcomes. And even if you're not near one of those phases right now, in any phase of your life, you can always find things and set goals as to what you want to do. But the really important point is measurability is an important piece to help you turn all those dreams and wishes into something you can actually attain to achieve that transformation that you want. Of course, you got to remember the other SMART steps, right? SMART goal steps: specific, which we talked about last week; measurable, which we just covered; achievable; relevant; and time-based. Where's our little slide here? Throw that back up. And so you can see it, right? We have specific goals, measurable goals, and coming next week will be achievable. And achievable or actionable is another way to say that. And then after that, it'll be relevant, and relevant also stands for reach goals. You want a goal to be relevant, something, achievable from the previous week, but relevant goals and reach goals has to be relevant to what you're interested in, but you want it to be kind of a push to get there. You don't want it to be too easy. And then time-based. Those are all things that are coming in the future. So that's it for tonight. Hope you found something useful out of all this. And remember that you can use the SMART system and all the different pieces of it to take the goals that you have hanging around your life, and we all have goals of some sort or another, and really make them into things that step by step you can actually reach and really transform your life into what you want it to be. So, like I said, that's it for tonight. Wanted to focus on the second step of defining a goal in a way that you can actually measure and see your progress and motivate yourself to carry on even when minor setbacks happen, because things like that happen in life all the time. And by seeing how much progress you made already, you're more likely to continue to keep making progress after that. Your homework for tonight, similar to last week, is to think about some of the goals you might have made for yourself, and then think if they were measurable or just kind of, like a desirable thought. And if they weren't measurable, extra points then, if you revisit that goal and imagine how you could have made it into something measurable. What was the real goal, and how would you know whether or not you actually reached that goal finally? And doing that step, just again, along with what we did last week with going and making your goal specific, will give you a big head start on ideas of how to make it. If you go back to the specific, it'll help you realize how to make something measurable. And then once you get to specific and measurable, you're well on your way to using SMART goals to achieve everything that you want. So, as always, as we say every week, remember, please, there's a lot of strife in the world right now, all over the world, here in the U.S., just everywhere seems to be a lot of drama going on. UKR7.com, we have links to ways to support the people of Ukraine in an active war right now in Europe, which is just amazing to consider. And then also WCK.org, World Central Kitchen. They work throughout the world, usually providing food and things related to food services. They've gone, I think, a little bit beyond that as well in order to support that goal. But that's really the big thing. And they work in disaster areas of any sort. But as we always talk about, there's lots of ways to help people. These big, national, international organizations, but there's a lot of local organizations, well, that are always looking for help. And even if you're not in a position to actually make donations to anyone right now or volunteer, just maybe your schedule doesn't allow it, you can always just say hi to somebody, smile. You always have the ability to make life a little bit better right in the area around you. Because remember, one of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others, changes your perspective in the world in a really positive way. So if you can and you're able, UKR7.com, WCK.org, any local organization, just make somebody's life a little happier by wishing them a good day, good morning, smiling at them. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along. And please subscribe and hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.